There is a prelude to today's homily. We have passed mid-year with our parish here of St. Mary's, so it's time for a mid-year update from the Finance Council. So you may be aware, the last few years, some large capital expenditures and inflation, increasing expenses for everyone have made it challenging to meet budgets in the past few years. Yet Finance Council and our parish has approved over the next 2 years to increase our salaries for our employees to make them more competitive wages. And this is important for us as part of Catholic social teaching is a just wage for labor. And so this is an important thing for us to do as a parish to get our salaries up to more of an appropriate competitive level. You also may recall being challenged recently that our regular giving needs to increase by 9% in order to meet these increased expenses that we are experiencing. Good news is that we started off very strong and have kept up with this increase. However, the last couple of months, we have fallen behind to the extent that at the end of January, we were around $40,000 behind the budget. It's good for us to reflect on, from time to time, our sacrificial regular giving. You may be familiar with the term tithing or tithe. This is a term from the scriptures, the Old Testament and the Bible. The people of Israel had this as part of their law, and a tithe, like a tenth. So they were required to give a tenth to the Lord of their profits or their income or their harvest. And so this 10% was not something that was just extra money laying around or extra grain that they had left over that they would give to the temple or to God or the poor. Rather, this was an offering of the first fruits. So it was something that they mandated and made sure that they did. It wasn't giving out of excess, but the tithe was right from the beginning, from the total. So they had to budget it into their other expenses as part of their use of their resources. Now, we live in the new covenant, and so we're not bound to a certain percent. However, we are called to be generous and to give. Our Lord calls us to share and to love our neighbor, and part of that is taking care of others with our material possessions. And the early church, often the members as they joined would give far more than 10%. We hear in the Acts of the Apostles, and we see Peter, who left everything to follow Jesus, that many would give their entire properties or their entire bank accounts to the church to follow Christ. Yet all of us are experiencing the hardships. And although the Christian tradition has held that 10% as a good goal or a good target for us, many of us are not able to get there. We all experience expenses and inflation and the increased strain on our budgets. But to put the parish's budget more into perspective, we're a large parish. We have many members. And if each member were to give only $5 more a month, and that's including those who maybe aren't giving currently, this would resolve the budget problem. Now think about that. You can't even hardly eat at McDonald's for $5 anymore. But increasing giving in this amount would help. Or if you like percents better, if everyone who gives were to increase they're giving by 1%, not only would the budget issue be solved, but our parish would have plenty of resources to fund the various missions that we have for repairs, for education, and other expenses. And just an additional note, you're maybe aware that we are putting in a new crucifix. This project is funded by restricted donations already in place to cover this, so this is not something that would come out of this normal, regular giving that the budget is referring to. And it is nice to receive these restricted donations. However, a better goal is for the parish to be able to sustain itself with that normal, sacrificial, regular giving. This is a much better model of stewardship and a model that is financially more healthy for our parish. Now, in our readings today, we hear of two call stories. Now, a call story we see throughout the scriptures. We see several instances of this. And often call stories share a similar theme. First, God reveals himself to the individual. We hear of Isaiah having this remarkable vision from heaven. We hear of St. Peter having this miraculous catch of fish after his interaction with Jesus. But then the response to this is often a theme as well throughout scriptures. The person resists. They come up with excuses as to why they're not fit to serve the Lord or to follow the Lord. Isaiah says, "I have unclean lips." Peter says, "Depart from me, I am a sinful man." But the Lord won't have it. He insists. He doesn't take back the invitation or the calling to these individuals. And Isaiah and St. Peter both go on to serve the Lord in remarkable ways. And the call stories in the Bible can teach us something about our own relationship with God. That is that God reveals himself to us and he invites us to serve and follow him in our lives. God may not have revealed himself to you in such a remarkable way as the heavenly vision to Isaiah or a remarkable catch of fish. However, God in some way has spoken to each of us, and it's why we're here today. It's why we attend Mass every Sunday. God has revealed himself to us in some way. And God will invite each of us to do more significant and big things for him in our lives, different things throughout our lives. However, God also continually calls us in little everyday ways to serve him and to follow him more and more. And one way that God asks us or invites us forward is to be generous with our material possessions and be generous to those around us. When I was a younger man, before my time in the seminary, before I was even thinking about the seminary, I remember this event pretty clearly. I was just kind of getting back into my Catholic faith, kind of went through a reimmersion, was starting to think about these things. I was in St. Cloud. I saw kind of a rough-looking guy on the side of the road, and he had a sign, and he was asking for money. Now, I immediately had a prompting to help this person, to give them some money. Yet, I recalled several conversations that I had had with other people, and they had noticed that there was an increase in homeless people in St. Cloud, and they were often of the opinion, that these people were lazy, that they were scammers, that they were sure to use the money to buy booze or drugs, and that they should just not be there. Plus, at this point, this was in my mind, but it also was probably too late for me to safely pull over. There wasn't a spot for me to pull over, so I kept driving. Now, I came up with these reasons why I shouldn't stop, and also stopping would have put me out of my comfort zone. It would have stretched me a little bit, as I had never stopped and given money to a homeless person at this point in my life before. So it would have kind of stretched me, made me a little bit uncomfortable. However, as I drove away, I still had the desire to help this person. So by the time I got to the end of the block, I did actually circle back around, and I pulled into the nearby parking lot. I walked up to the guy, kind of greeted him, and gave him a $20 bill. He was grateful, but as I drove away, I reflected on this, and I was very much lifted up in my spirits. I was experiencing that consolation that comes from God when we say yes or when we respond to his invitations in our lives. And I learned that important lesson that day, that sometimes we do need to go out of our comfort zone or stretch in our response to God. So responding with compassion to others, giving of our resources to others is really important for us. And the reason is twofold. Not only does God expect this from us as a response to justice, as an act of justice, also our Christian calling to love our neighbor requires of this of us as well, that we're generous and we give. But a secondary reason is that God will actually bless us in return. God will not be outdone in generosity, and when we give to others, God will bless us in return, at a minimum in our souls and in our spirits, by giving us that fulfillment and that peace. Now, it's good for us to look with compassion and give directly to those who are in need that we see. But supporting our local parish is also important for us. When we support the local parish, unlike some other places that we can give, we can be assured that the money is being used to build up God's kingdom. We can be assured of a favorable return on the investment, a return that we can actually see. For if we all contribute, we have a comfortable and a vibrant place to worship. We have a place that our families and loved ones can come to experience God and to pray. When we all contribute, we have good education programs that are well funded that can help our loved ones and our families to grow closer to God, and can fund evangelization for those in the community who maybe don't know God. And also, when we all contribute generously, our parish is able to reach out to the needy that are in our immediate community and to help those who go without. So we're all invited by God to be generous and sometimes to go out of our comfort zones and sometimes even to give more or to look at our giving and evaluate whether the Lord is inviting us to stretch or to give a little bit more. And even if it is only $5 more a month, or 1%, or even 0.5%.